Theseus and Pirithous are two heroes, and they're friends, and they're very good at what they do. They may do some quite immoral things as a sort of today's society is concerned, but anyway, they live in their own context. And when they meet each other, they realize that they both had previous wives that are now passed away. So they were like, why don't we work together and find us some new wives, right? But they're very ambitious, right? Very ambitious men, and they decide that they would like to marry daughters of Zeus, like the main big god bloke in Greek mythology, right? And so Theseus chooses a woman called Helen, who is like the most beautiful woman in Greece and in Athens. And she indirectly caused the Trojan War for whatever reason. I'm not really super well versed in that story, but I know she was involved in that. Very, very beautiful woman. And they kidnap her, right? They kidnap her successfully, and they keep her with Theseus' mother. And Pirithous decides that he wants to marry Persephone. And Persephone is the queen of the underworld. She's the wife of Hades, the god of the underworld. And so they decide to go into the underworld to try and kidnap her, right? So they're traveling through the underworld, getting quite tired because, it's quite rough territory and it's a long way and it's sort of, the landscape's not very easy to navigate. And they decide to take a rest on some rocks. But after they've rested for a little while and they want to continue on their journey, they realize that they can't stand up because they have been trapped or tied to the rocks that they're on. They can no longer stand. It's almost like they've been, what's the right word? Contained in the rock that they've sat on. And then at this point, these beings called Furies arrive, and these are the goddesses of the underworld. They're kind of imagine a dragon woman, demon fairy thing. And these are what they do is they basically punish mortals when they violate the laws of natural order, right? When they go against the rules of the world, and they punish them. And so what they do is they stretch out these two heroes and torture them, right? And in that moment, in being tortured, all the heroes' courage kind of drains away and they're screaming for help. Now, then Hercules comes along, not for the reason of trying to find these two guys. Hercules was just doing his own business in the underworld, whatever he does. And he finds them both and he saves them, right? He tries to save them. He does successfully save Theseus, right? But he can't save Pirithous. And that's because Pirithous' crime was greater than Theseus's, because Pirithous wanted to marry the queen of the underworld and a wife of a god, which was a greater crime against the law of natural order for him to do that as a mortal. And so Pirithous eternally is tortured in hell, basically. So that's the story. Now, the three moral messages that I took away from it. One was, don't overstep your mark or aim too high, right? Because these heroes, they are formidable in the mortal world at what they do. They're very successful. But Pirithous specifically overstepped his mark by wanting to marry a daughter of Zeus, but wanting to marry the queen of the underworld, a wife of a god. He kind of believed that he could steal the wife of a god. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of ego involved in that. There's a lot of illusions of grandeur, I suppose. And this is what led to his downfall, not only in being willing to go into the underworld and try and do this and fail, but also the fact that his crime was then so big against the laws of the god's world, against the laws of natural order, that he had to remain in the underworld forever and couldn't escape. Secondly, I think there's a message about the danger of resting and believing that you're safe when you're in the unknown or facing a big challenge. So they were in this journey and they thought they were safe enough to rest on these rocks. But then when they went to get going again, they found they were trapped and they were sort of, incapacitated, stuck, incarcerated onto these rocks. And I think we can apply that to our lives and go, when we're facing a challenge, we can get to a point where we feel like we're on a good sort of trajectory, where the motion is going really well. And then there's this proclivity to stagnate and be complacent and rest, when we may do that. And then when we go to get back on the wagon again, realize that we're stuck and we can no longer stand up. Kind of like how Casey Neistat said in a video a couple of years ago on YouTube about how life is like walking on those flat escalator things in airports that move you along. And he said, it's like going on one of them in reverse. So you have to keep moving to stay in the same place. You have to run to make progress. And if you stop, that thing's just going to reverse you back and back and back down that same corridor. And the final moral lesson that I drew from this is about the symbolism and the significance of the symbolism of the Fury, right? This underworld goddess that will punish you when you breach sort of moral laws and laws of natural order in the universe. And I think they are real things, right? Not in terms of literally, but they manifest instead as the like psychological and spiritual maladies and afflictions that we face when we kind of breach moral codes in life. So they may manifest as extreme guilt. They may manifest as extreme distress and anxiety. They may manifest as depression. They may manifest as overwhelmingness and of not knowing really what your path in life is if you've gone awry. And there's some significance in understanding that when you violate certain rules of life, I guess, you take certain paths in life, there will be punishments, but they may not be like as obvious. They may be psychological. And that's what I think these characters represent. So,
unfortunately, as well, my Greek mythology isn't massively well versed.
Me neither, man. Me neither.
But I would want it to be. I'll get to that eventually. I think there was another myth that had a similar message, which was about, I think it was also Greek mythology. There was two people that were trying to like form wings, and
it is Icarus.
Yeah, Icarus.
When he no, I'm not super well versed to this at all, but I feel like it was where he like built wings and felt like he was a superhuman, felt like he wanted to be like one of the gods or was a kind of god, and then he flew too close to the sun and died.
Yeah. Whereas the other one just kind of flew at the right altitude. Yeah, and I think the lesson with that is I've heard a reference a lot, just like beware the story of Icarus, like how don't get too caught. That's a very similar theme throughout a lot of these stories. Is this kind of death through someone's ego? That's what it is. It's,
yes.
Because there's also, it reminds me of the quite I think it was Aristophanes' very wild theory in the Symposium about how the humans got split up because they tried to become gods, and they used to be, humans used to have double the sort of the organs, the features, the 2 arms. They had 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads, but we got split up because we tried to become gods. And now we have this eternal craving for as a male for the feminine. So I think this is a genuine theme that keeps coming up, is death from one's ego. I think there's, with the underworld story, to me, the swampy stones that they're trapped in kind of symbolize the death through complacency as well. So Hercules, he's the one that comes and saves them, and there's also stories of him where he's like, on one hand there's the vices, on one hand there's the virtues, and Hercules picks the virtues, because if he was to pick the vices, he wouldn't be Hercules. And he's just a character that's not complacent at all.